You talk of finding other vampires. Vampires are killers. They don't want you or your sensibility. They'll see you coming long before you see them, and they'll see your flaw. And distrusting you, they'll seek to kill you. They'd seek to kill you even if you were like me, because they are lone predators and seek for companionship no more than cats in the jungle. They're jealous of their secret and of their territory, and if you find one or more of them together, it will be for safety only, and one will be the slave of the other, the way you are of me.
Good evening, this is Darcis. It's been a while since we've talked, but I'm glad to return to you all now. Hope you all are doing well with the current situation. I wanted to talk about courts and covens and cults. Vampire courts, covens, and cults tonight. And what I think about them and how so much of the vampire community is connected to the idea of formulating courts or community, like when I say community, actual structured organizations. So I actually had some experience, despite my earlier testimony of being permanently solitary. I have had some experience with a local court, which I won't name by their precise name or name any individuals, but I will discuss. And so this was about a year or two ago when I was in my extreme heyday of really into the vampire subculture. And I thought the area I lived in the suburbs. The area had no vampire lifestyle, and just you had to go into the city for any goth subculture. So it was kind of like a dead zone. No pun intended. But right when I was thinking there's no kind of community in that area, I stumbled upon another self-identified vampire. So it was actually this girl, not too different from myself. She's a young African American, worked an office job, who was also very passionate about the vampire subculture and wanted to see it flourish. So we talked a bit, and then we decided to meet up at the mall to get to know each other. I really wanted to see her experience, and so we met up at the food court. We got Starbucks, and it seemed like a decent conversation. And I got the impression that we shared that same drive to see the community flourish, but we had a different background and kind of motive going forward. My background, as you guys might be aware, is almost academic and it's kind of solitary, a lot of introspection and just gathering as much knowledge as I could and can. It's been mainly independent. Her experience with vampirism was largely energy links, relationships, kind of expanding her network of meeting more and more donors and having them feel her energy and her ego basically. And in a way, her vampirism was heavily based on the BDSM scene, the kink scene. So at the time, I really didn't know much about kink. Now I have a better appreciation for it, but it was still uncharted territory for me. And so as I got to know her, I realized quite quickly that she kind of viewed me as a potential either donor on which to feed or a vampiric partner. So that was interesting. And she wanted to take it to the next step. Romantically even. And I wasn't really interested in that. I was more just feeling her out, feeling to see what her experiences with vampirism were. And she said she was actually even starting a coven, so that was really interesting to me as well. I was like, oh yeah, if you're trying to build the vampire community, here I am as well, So we kind of had different goals, but we continued texting after that first meetup. But my initial impressions kind of were proven correct. My style of texting and communication, if you have talked to me before, is what I would personally call efficient. I'm not one who was gonna text you every day to say how are you doing, hello. I don't have a redundant conversation. Like, if I have something to say and we have a meaningful conversation, then we'll talk. But there's no need to check in every day. Hers was the exact opposite. She was the kind who kind of expected and wanted and sought after like that hourly communication back to back, almost trying to wheedle into someone's life. And I had to tell her I wasn't there for that. I wasn't going to do that. And she agreed at first, but she kind of persisted, and I resisted, and we just were communication-wise incompatible. So we kind of dropped off, fell off communicating. And she's called me actually a bad communicator, but did say I was still welcome at future events. That if her court had in-person events, I could come to those. But I guess we just weren't compatible talking, which was fine by me. So over the next year or so, we had some sporadic talks here and there. We messaged each other or liked each other's posts on the social media, but we didn't really connect too much. She hosted one, I think, in-person event with her court, but by that time I had moved to the city, so it was on a weeknight and I just didn't have the time to go, so I didn't go to that event. Now fast forward, now we're getting to present day. Fast forward to now, 2020, and hashtag stay at home. We're all, I think, at least a month or so into lockdown, quarantine, and so everyone's starved for some social interaction. And she starts with her court, starts hosting these Zoom meetups where they're, it's open invitation to talk about vampire, kink, whatever, the subculture. So I kind of cave in and I finally go to one. I sign in, and it's a good time, and I get to meet some of the other members of her court. And although I did enjoy them, there were a lot of queer people of color, into the goth scene. They were pretty cool. I did notice that they were all following that same hierarchy of, they were basically donors or feeding into her energy. They were subservient in a way, or they were, as is in the kink scene, called submissives. I would say they were consenting, so it was like there was no morals they're not morally questionable, and that wasn't a big regard for me, but it wasn't something that I myself wanted to feed into. I didn't want to be subservient to the queen as she went by. And even though these people were interesting to talk to, I didn't want to officially join that. So she actually asked me after the meetup if I wanted to join her group, and I was like, I like visiting. I like being a Ronin, as I mentioned before, non-affiliated vampire. I like stopping by, but I don't want to officially join and serve you. So, yeah. And then from there, she had some other meetups and she invited me. And so I missed the first one, but then the second I tried to, I was told I would try to come. I came as per usual to the meetup, and there's a meetup link, and usually I press maybe, and it's an open invite, so really pretty much if you flagged it or tagged it, you'll see the invite link. But for this one was actually a seminar. It was a larger seminar where she had 50 plus people tuning into her Zoom, allegedly, or at least they had clicked the yes or maybe, and I had clicked the maybe. Come to find out though, that only the people who clicked the yes got the actual Zoom link, so anyone who clicked maybe didn't get it. So I came there at the right time, but there was no link to the Zoom chat, so I wasn't able to join. I could have been more proactive and read the details in print, but they could also have been more accessible. So to me, it wasn't a big deal. 50 people or so were supposed to show up. I was just one of those many people. I was like, it is what it is. So I just went on with my day. I didn't go. The next day, I get a message. I think it's from the vampire queen, the leader of this court. Actually, it's from her court sheriff. If you know what a sheriff is in Vampire the Masquerade or even True Blood, it's like a bouncer, it's like a guardian, it's like an appointed, someone appointed to that position. So the court sheriff sends me this page-long formal email saying that the queen has decided to rescind my invitation to their court. So it was polite enough, and it wasn't mean, but at the same time it was just obvious that me not attending this event that she wanted me to attend led her to bar me from her court. So I was like, I just said to them, okay, thanks. That's what I replied, okay, thanks. And I left it as that. But as I got to think about it, I was like, this is really a sign for me that I don't want to be part of this court or don't want to really associate with them. So I didn't pursue any kind of like, in and out kind of relationship or any kind of like, kind of getting to know any of the members anymore. I just like wash my hands of them. And so the reason why I think I did that is because I kind of noticed that kind of cultish, controlling behavior. I don't think courts are bad. I don't think they're impossible. I think they can work. But I think the problem is when you kind of desire a certain commitment, and it's not commitment to an idea or cause, it's commitment to a certain individual, and your value in the court is measured by that. I think that's what the Queen was going for. I think she used the court as a way of expanding herself and her own energy links. And even a few days after that, of that event and me not even being part of it, she had mentioned in another public post that she was like, oh, I'm only looking for members who have true commitment. I only want, a lot of people have left for various reasons and they only want those who are committed. And that just served to confirm what I had felt, that, the organization unfortunately was really just about fueling her own sense of self and importance. And so that's something you have to look out for when you're looking into not just vampire groups, but any kind of occult or spiritual religious organization, any kind of fraternity, sorority, any kind of group, ordered group, is that it's not having those kind of cultish behaviors. It's instead more like a circle. I like to look for groups that are more circular rather than a pyramid. Speaking of pyramids. And anyway, where the power is dispersed more evenly, and if there is a leader, the leader is there more for administrative functions, not to serve as a cult of personality or some sort of full supreme leader. It's more of a circle. Everyone plays a part. Everyone can just share equally and collaboratively. And for people on what I would call the dark current or dark practitioners, vampires, etc., I think that is the gold standard. I think we see enough hierarchy in day-to-day life. Why would we be seeking that in our groups that we voluntarily elect to join, that we are paid or forced to be there, that we just want to be part of a community? Why wouldn't we search for something where we have to be subservient? Now, some people like subservience. They like to be led around, and maybe they ought to go to a church where people can decide everything for them. But if you're on this current, if you're seeking hidden truths in your own maximization, then I think you need some will of self-determination, And that's at least my 2 cents of it. So, I hope you guys have enjoyed this kind of short little story time talk. It's been a pleasure imparting it. And I hope you stay well through these interesting times and we come out of this even better than before. If you're not already, please like and subscribe to my YouTube, Death After College, and also check out my Instagram at Death After College. Yeah, till we meet again.